Hello, you snacks. Welcome back. My name is Jack. Thank you once again for stopping by. Another day, another typical relationship drama story with a recent update as of a day ago. It's built up a lot of contention in the comments, so I'm really interested to know what all you think, because oftentimes when I think I have the right idea of something, you all blow me out of the water with very valid criticism. So let's get into it. I surprised my wife by coming home early only to find another man in our home late. Is this monkey branching or just my difficult past influencing me? Some background. My partner is 32 female and I'm 36 male, and we have been together for just over 8 years. We are married with one child. Mostly it's been a very love-filled relationship. We had our disagreements, but they always ended with some form of care and compassion and compromise or resolution. We are both independent, educated, swap between working and stay-at-home parenting. We both have full-time careers in the medical field, and each of our own side businesses are run from home. I have no reason to distrust her. So what about my recent past? During pregnancy and after our first child, we had some major disagreements, and we had an enormous loss of trust and communication between us. She was later diagnosed with postpartum depression and anxiety and started medication, and both started marriage counseling recently. We both have feelings of being hurt, disrespected, unheard, and unloved by the other. Both of us are 100% valid. We did hurt each other. I have doubts that she loves me in the same deep way that she used to, but I'm willing to trust her when she tells me. I've voiced this to her often recently. Everything seemed to be moving forward until I came home last night. I should back up. She went on a day-long hike yesterday with some friends to go foraging, one of which was a coworker who's 21 male, a young kid, works on the floor with her as a nurse. It's overnight shifts, so they have a lot of time to hang around the nursing station. I know they talk. I know they talk on Messenger. I have no problems with my wife having friends of any flavor. Now, he had come over a couple of times before hikes and seemed pretty shy and nervous around me, but he's a kid. He seemed cool. A few weeks ago, my wife had to wait for the pharmacy to open up to pick up her pills because she ran out. So in order to wait, they went hiking up a mountain together after work. But when she got home, she had actually forgotten to get the pills and had to take the 2-hour return trip drive to get them the next day. Something didn't feel right. Anyway, back to yesterday and her hike with friends out foraging. He, the kid, came by in the morning so they could carpool. My lovely wife gave him a couple of books on foraging, etc. as gifts when he arrived. It seemed a little awkward receiving them. They took off, brought our child to the babysitter, and went foraging. He left his car at our place. When I got home from work, I decided I wanted a little time to myself, and for the first time in, 2 years? I threw a sleeping bag and pad in a backpack and went out cowboy camping on top of my favorite local peak. I texted my wife that I wouldn't be home tonight and I'd see her in the morning. Honestly, the hike and peak was awesome. I read my book, smoked a joint with some kids having a fire on the other lookout. It was a really fun time and I felt great. Then my sleeping pad deflated. I didn't bring a patch kit, so that sucks, but it's only 9 p.m. I'll just come down, scoot home, and go see my wife. We had just missed being intimate last week. Lots of hugging and touching and lead up, but timing didn't work. And so instead of texting her, I thought I'd surprise her. She had texted me earlier, around 7 p.m., that she was back home and that by 8 p.m. our kid was down sleeping. She was back up with all her mushrooms and ramps and stuff. She sent pictures. It looked like an awesome day. But when I pulled in the driveway around 9:45 p.m., the kid's car was still parked in the driveway. It's a bit odd. He stayed around for the hour it took while my wife put our kids to bed and a couple hours more together after that. So I came inside and it really didn't seem like anything was off. He was still awkward and my wife was a bit talkative, but she had a great day and wanted to talk about it, and I liked to hear about it. They had a microscope out on the table with specimens around. Nothing suspicious at all, honestly. But I I felt something deep in me. I was sweaty and gross, so I excused myself and took a shower. Here, I have to probably relay some trauma. My only other serious adult relationship ended in betrayal when my partner, who was 25 female, fell for a much younger man, 19 male, a coworker who she told me I had nothing to worry about. She told me he had feelings for her, but it wasn't mutual. He wasn't her type. He was short, artist type, and she preferred men like me, tall, less flighty, more masculine. I trusted her. In a horrifying series of events, I would learn from a friend that my past partner and the previous kid were seen together, and she had spent the night at his place. I was out of town at the time. Between the time I learned of them together and the day before I was able to come home, she had been killed in a car accident. I came home expecting to seek answers for things I had heard, only to find she was gone forever. It messed me up for years, probably permanently, which is why I'm coming to Reddit strangers for advice. I don't think I can be a good judge of this current situation because of my past. I think it hits me too hard from a place I can't understand. With all the similarities, it's just a lot. So needless to say, coming out of the shower, I had a lot of feelings, but I kept composed. I absolutely do not want to discourage my wife from having friends or enjoying hobbies with those friends, and I trust her. When I came out to the kitchen to eat with them and chat, his car was pulling out of the driveway. I guess he had to get his mom's car home by 3 a.m.? That's what my wife said, which I found a weird thing to say. He could leave by 2 a.m. then. That's not a reason for leaving right now, but whatever. I'm going insane inside and maybe can't understand why that was said. As my wife and I chatted, I think she could tell something was off. She offered a massage, but honestly, I really didn't feel like being touched. I think I was having a bit of anxiety. She asked what's wrong, and I told her I think some of my past is screwing with me. She asked if it was because he was over so late, after our kid was asleep. I said yes. I asked her if she had feelings for him. She said no. I asked if he had feelings for her. She said, I don't know. I pressed her on it because, in my opinion, my wife has a eternally frustrating habit of trickle-truthing when she knows it's something I don't want to hear. And then she said, in a long string, he's just a dumb young kid. He doesn't know what he's doing. I don't even think he likes mushrooms. I think he just likes being around me. But I don't find him attractive at all. Like, at all. He's not my type. You're my type, OP. I love you and only you. Now, I should say, I did really feel like she was being honest, but she did know the kid had feelings for her. But she's right. He's young and dumb and probably doesn't understand what he's attempting to do. But the point is, he is attempting it and she knows it. Then I realized that had my sleeping pad not blown and I had come home, it's possible I could have never known what happened or if he was there or how long or anything. That sent me spiraling inside a bit. After more discussion, to her defense, she said things like, I was uncomfortable too having him over that late, though I'm not sure what to think. Again, I don't want to stop my wife from having friends or ruin her relationships with coworkers, and my past might be playing a nefarious role in my gut shooting up the bat signal screaming at me that my relationship is damaged beyond repair and my wife is entering other men, seriously or unseriously, as a response to that. Am I right to be distraught over him being over so late? The only night I'm ever gone when she kinda sorta knew he had feelings for her. I'm feeling pretty screwed up today, but I can't tell if it's from today or just reliving back then. So here's the thing, you can't help but ponder the fact that even if the wife is totally innocent in all this, there's no nefarious cheating or like that, she's still enabling it all. And like this comment highlights, I think it's still rather scummy. Still makes her an a-hole in this scenario. Like, okay, we get it. It's fun to have your ego stroked. It's pretty nice to know that someone who would be considered the more desirable type, being young and more hip with the current crowd, I mean, to have them think that you are amazing and attractive, yeah, look, that lifts your ego. That's great. But I think that's excusable the first time you experience that or it becomes apparent. The moment you keep that young person around, tailing after you, it doesn't matter if you're never going to entertain them further than just a friendship. You're still an a-hole for leading someone on. I mean, like, am I wrong here? I feel like just because it's not your husband that that you are being, like, well, you are using, it doesn't mean you're a bad It doesn't mean you're not a bad person for doing it. But okay, that post was 2 weeks ago. Now moving on to the update less than 24 hours ago, where an attempt to rectify things was made by the wife, but also far more actions that make this seem far less than just entertaining a friend. So for the days after we talked a lot, she was adamant she wanted nothing to do with him, has no feelings other than friendship, and now that she was aware both A, the possibility of him trying, as it is true that I or she still don't know his intentions, and B, my reaction to her behavior, leaving out his presence later with her text messages to me after carpooling and putting our kid to bed, trickle-truthing me on her view of his possible intentions. She said she doesn't want anything to do with him. No, just no. She offered up her phone if I wanted to see their conversations. She did the location sharing thing on her iPhone. Was pretty clear that this was all some bullshit, and she hates that this situation ever became a thing. She was losing a friend, but was more than willing to. So we set some boundaries. 1. People over late at the house, just let the other person know. Obviously, family doesn't count. Just to avoid any possibility of any interference, better to let each other know who is in our house than late, one-on-one. 2. For people who may feel, even have hints of intentions beyond platonic, we should overshare with each other. Thanks for that helpful commenter. Not overanalyze every relationship, but just say things like, Dr. X said this today, kind of weird, or new guy at foraging seemed to like me a lot, stuff like that. I don't want to be a controlling person. I'm not that person, but maybe because of my history, I require more openness and communication about things like that in a relationship. She told me I was being too worried about her feelings or me being controlling, and that was more than willing to do anything it took to rebuild any trust that was broken from the situation. So we had our second session of marriage counseling, and obviously the topic came up first. I started to give a brief history, but got interrupted by our child upstairs. I gave them some attention and came back down to continue. When I got to the part of coming home, taking a shower and confronting my wife, I can't remember who said what, but it was interrupted. Talking happened, and then the therapist said,
"And it sounds like your wife recognized what had happened and your past."
Wife said she didn't know how close or similar some of the details were, and the conversation moved on from there. The omission of his presence in text messages, trickle-truthing, none of that was brought up. But things were looking up. Not sure I liked the therapist, but whatever. Things seemed to be good. She seemed fairly contrite, though I really was still bothered by the red and orange flags planted in my little mind garden. So fast forward a week? Something like that. I screwed up. I guess I'm glad I did, but I did screw up. I don't sleep much, 5 hours max. I was up early, garden tending, made breakfast for little one, and coffee for her. The usual. I saw her work bag on the floor, and I saw her journal in there. And I screwed up, and I read it. I wanted to know if the 21-year-old male was in her journal. Listen, for some context, I read the journals of my late partner, who died over a decade ago, and it was a stupid, horrible mistake. I read things that I shouldn't have, very raw thoughts and feelings, pros and cons list of me, stuff like that. Then entries about that other man and her falling in love with him, and then her thoughts about her conflicted thoughts about leaving me. And near the end, if I recall, she didn't know. She loved us both, but we were so different. I kept the journals, I still have them somewhere, but I did burn those last pages about him. I do recall telling myself that I was protecting future me. I'm glad I burned those pages, and I'm glad I kept her journals, but I don't venture to read them anymore. I will again when I'm older, to keep her alive and me somehow, I guess. Anyways, when I saw her journals in the bags, I just grabbed them and I read the latest couple of pages. Innocuous stuff until I got to about a month ago. It said,
"Texted all night and hike Monday."
Now that wasn't me she texted with or hiked with on that day. That was with him when she forgot to get her prescription. So that meant two things to me. 1. Who writes texted all night in their journal with someone they don't have feelings about? I'm not a journal person. I don't like my thoughts enough to put them on paper, but that doesn't seem right to me. It had no name, but it was definitely him. The dates match. I don't know. Again, I don't journal, so maybe anything can mean anything in there, but what the hell? 2. She had planned on hiking with him. She didn't tell me that. She told me of her plans going hiking after work to pass the time before the pharmacy opens, but never told me that he was going too. Now, in fairness, she told me after she sent pictures of the hike to me and his dog was in the photos, but she didn't mention that they had planned it together. It seemed spontaneous, but I never asked, I guess. So yeah, I stopped reading. Kinda felt like I was shot with an arrow. Pretty horrible feeling because I thought things were going to be okay, but now I read this. So it was like 6 a.m. at this point, so I went on a run to clear my head and get the adrenaline out. Some tears too. Got home and they were still sleeping. When they woke up and we were alone, I asked her again if she ever developed any feelings for him. She said no. I told her I read her journal. I apologized, but I told her I read something and I needed an explanation. Rightly so, she wasn't happy. She told me those are personal, her thoughts, and are not for other people. She was also confused as to what I could have possibly read about him or the situation that needed explaining. She asked me to show her the entry, so I did. Now for context, they work overnights together. Her response was, "Oh yeah, we texted a lot that night. He wasn't working, but I was. You know I wasn't home, right? I was working that night." I asked why it was in her journal, and why were you planning to hike with him, but when you told me about your plans for that day, you never mentioned you were planning it with him. She said, "Well, I didn't know for sure he would come. We were talking about it, but I didn't know for sure." And then the texted all night part? It didn't mean anything. She explained that journals are fragments, not full thoughts, and she was just writing it. I didn't like that answer at all, honestly. We had another long discussion where she reassured me it meant nothing, that it shouldn't be interpreted as anything about her having feelings for him. I believe her. I don't know how she journals, so maybe this isn't far out of the norm. I don't know. Though I have to be honest here. The trust I had in her, a lot of it left, which is pretty much the basis of a relationship. A lot of people sent me messages after my post with spy cams and stuff. If I had to resort to that, I'd just end the relationship, I thought. Now here I am, snooping on her journals. 2 days later, Kid and I go out camping at a park for a couple of nights. She's working. We have a blast. During that time away, I decided it's important to me to know what conversations took place between them. Yes, I snooped. But I think it's reasonable at this point to demand to know just what types of things are said between them. She offered earlier, I just never took her up on it because it was really obvious to me that she felt she had nothing to hide. But after this journal entry thing, yeah, I would like to know what texted all night means. I thought if the conversation that night is just talking smack, sure, whatever. But if it's more, or that night is deleted or something, then I'll know. I honestly expected to read the messages, be reassured of her side of the story, and move on. So we got home yesterday from camping. This morning, I asked her if I could read the conversations, explained why, and without hesitation, she said yes, and went to get her phone, gave it to me, and I sat to start reading. They had been texting recently, mostly innocuous mushroom stuff. Then one or a couple attempts by him to come over or go out for foraging. I guess he was going around our area. Strange, since he lives an hour away. Cruising on his motorcycle, and her response to him was, as close as I can recall,
Not today. Not allowed to have anyone home. Lol.
Alright, what the hell? She saw my face and asked what was wrong. I put the phone down and said, I don't want to read anymore. I asked if she had told him about my view on their relationship, or what happened, or anything about him, her, and I. She said no. I asked again. She said no. He has no clue. She never mentioned anything. I showed her the text and asked her why she would say that. Why would she say no one was allowed at home? People are allowed in my home. That wasn't any of the boundaries we set together. He's been here, clearly. And why would she say that to him if she never mentioned anything like that to him? Her response was that she meant she wasn't having people over or was busy. She then told me, you were home that day. I don't get it. So, okay, yeah, I didn't read the dates of the text, but even so, why the hell would you word it that way? That's not even close to, no, I'm busy today, or literally any other million ways to say I'm not available today. I'm not allowed to have people at home is entirely different. Lol is entirely different. I just cannot see how on earth you get from those words to that meaning she says she was trying to convey. Look, maybe I'm wrong. She said she didn't mean it that way. It's not her mother tongue. To be fair, English is not her first language. She's quite fluent and has learned it from childhood, but it's not her primary language. We've spoken exclusively English together for the last decade or so that I've known her. You wouldn't know it wasn't her primary talking language to her unless you had a good ear. But she's right. Maybe it is just a mistranslation. She said it was clumsy and not meant in any way to convey anything more than I'm not available today. We talked all morning until she went to bed. She reassured me that she loves me and only me. I walked through every red flag, every opportunity for her to be honest and open. I asked her why she didn't tell me about this recent attempt wants to meet up again. She said she didn't know she should have told me. She said she didn't know she had to replay every conversation with him to me. I said she didn't. That's not what I was asking. But I was asking for her to be extra open about her relationship with him to me, and him asking to come over twice definitely would require her letting me know. I told her she didn't respect me at all. I told her she didn't care enough to tell me. I told her she's not being open and honest with me, that it's not me and her against the world, that this relationship is something else. She reassured me it meant nothing, but now that she sees how that text could be read that way, as if they had discussed him not being allowed in our home, she still denies it. It's that she understands why I would react that way. But now she's been frustrated. She said, "It feels like a little fly came into my life and pooped all over everything," referring to him and his advances as the cause of what screwed this all up. But I reiterated to her every step along the way in which she could have been truthful to me and decided to admit information instead. Things like texting all night and planning the hike, staying over late after carpooling together, after our kid went to sleep, texting me and not mentioning he was still over, trickle-truthing me on whether she thinks he's interested in her, his two offers to meet via text or messenger or whatever, at least the ones I saw, I didn't look more, and how she didn't think to tell me about it, and her reply of, "Not today, not allowed to have anyone at home, lol," whatever the hell that means. Regardless, her position is still the same, that this is all the bad coincidences and misunderstandings, misreading texts or journal entries, etc. But she says she loves me, has only eyes for me, and better understands now where I'm coming from. So, there's my little hell I've got for myself. Personal therapy is starting soon, but I guess Reddit therapy will do for now. It's somehow therapeutic to remember this and type it all out. Sorry, looking back, this is insanely long. It's too long to proofread if stuff I garbled was wrong, but it took me all day to write, I guess. Now, with the last post, I felt very overwhelmed by the response. I'm sorry I didn't respond to a lot of comments or questions or clarifications. I'll try to do better here, since this is probably the final time I'll use Reddit as therapy. So again, there seems to be some progress, but still leaving comments to say the same thing as before, that hey, if I found out a guy was into me and actively trying to hang out and I was married, I would just cut contact other than professionally at work only. She seems to continue to fuel this crush he has, and it's gonna lead to her having a crush if it hasn't already. Because yeah, look, let's be real. If people didn't eventually develop some sort of crush or enjoyment from someone flirting with them and expressing a lot of keen interest and devotion towards them, it wouldn't become such a common trope that it is nowadays in most media. We see it in TV shows and movies because it's a fantasy a lot of people have. We like to be liked. Shocking, I know, wow, crazy! But here's another thing. As crazy of a jump to accusations this comment is about implying he's gonna eventually murder her, it's entirely possible that this is a situation where malicious intent is being completely mistaken for what is truthfully just blatant ignorance. Like the girl who is happy to have this guy friend, but this entire time the guy friend thinks that her being nice to her and just her acting the way she is means that she's in love with him, or is keen on him to pursue her more. Your wife possibly doesn't believe she genuinely could be seen as such a hot commodity to a young 21-year-old, thinks it's amusing at most. But of course you can still argue against that OP has made it very clear multiple times that he is uncomfortable with this dynamic. So that alone should make her just zip this whole relationship up. But I don't know, I'm not trying to defend this woman, completely lacking any effort to actually rebuild the trust with her partner. Like it seems with all the openings he's given her, she hasn't taken one single. So I leave this up to you. What do you think? Is this person trickle-truthing because they genuinely are trying to hide a lot of things, or are they doing it because they genuinely don't think it's as a big of a deal until just this update now? The fact she's been so open to share things with him when he asks, but she never does it herself proactively, that doesn't mean someone is being deceitful behind your back. It just means she doesn't think it's as big of an issue until just now. So yeah, let me know what you think, and I think we're gonna end it there because this is a long read today. I'm sure you need a break, so I'll let you be. I love your face. You're a delicious human being. And until then, you be good. Bye-bye.